Hello and welcome to the Sonic Cinema podcast. My name is Brian Scuttle and thank you for joining us at www.sonic-cinema.com. I hope everybody's having a good 2017. It's been a tough year to try to get caught up on a lot of things when it comes to Sonic Cinema, not the least of which being recording podcasts, but things are moving along as well as they can, and hopefully we'll have some more podcast content for you soon. Today, we are going to do the first one of 2017 about the Oscars, which are tomorrow night. Basically, running down the nominees, how I kind of feel about the awards this year, and also just basically going through what I consider the best and favorites for myself personally for 2016 to just sort of put a bow on the year as I try to do every year. So before we start off with the Oscars, I'd like to run down my top 10, my 10 favorite movies of the year and my 10 best movies of the year, as I did last year for this podcast. I do differentiate between favorites and best. Favorites are more entertainment, more movies that hit me on something of a more personal level. Best are, you're talking about the overall quality and excellence of the filmmaking. Just because a movie is on one and not the other, doesn't mean that it's lacking in one area over another. It just means that one resonates more with the critical side of me. One is more subjective and personal when it comes to the filmmaking. And so without further ado, I'm going to start out with my 10 favorite movies of 2017. We'll start out with number 10, basically go 10 to 1. And starting out with number 10 is the movie Sing Street, which I didn't see until it hit Netflix, but is the latest film from John Carney, who did Once and Begin Again. And one of the things I love about his films is the way he uses music, the way he tells personal stories when it comes to music. And it's incredibly compelling, and the stories they've told so far are just absolutely wonderful. The music is great. Some of the best films about love of music that I've seen since High Fidelity, Almost Famous, and just a completely wonderful story about an Irish teen who tries to impress a girl by saying he's in a band, and yet he doesn't have a band, so he has to go make one. And it's an absolutely wonderful film. Has probably my favorite song soundtrack of 2016 over La La Land, which we'll go through a little bit more when it comes to the Oscars. So number 10 is John Carney's Sing Street. Number 9 is Martin Scorsese's Silence, which is the third film of his sort of unofficial trilogy of faith after Last Temptation of Christ and Kundun. It's a movie he's spent a quarter of a century trying to make, and the result is nothing short of spellbinding. It's a difficult movie to get through about two Jesuit priests who travel in Japan at a time when Christianity is outlawed, and they witness the persecution of Christians in Japan after one of their mentors, played by Liam Neeson, has gone missing and has supposedly renounced his faith. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. It's another film from Scorsese that touches on similar themes as the first two films, which I hope to discuss in a podcast in the future with a filmmaker who has a lot of the same love of Scorsese as I do, and I'm looking forward to that podcast. And but it's really a shame that this film did not get the love that it should have. I felt from audiences, it's one of the best faith faith-based movies or movies about religion that I've probably ever seen, such as befitting Scorsese. And so number 9 is Martin Scorsese's Silence. Number 8 is one of the movies that I saw via screener, is from a filmmaker who I believe I've seen 4 films from now. It's Edgar Michael Bravo's Young Man's Future. It's about a college student who is gay, and he falls in love with a fellow student. The problem is the fellow student has severe mental issues, severe psychological issues. And it's basically a matter of the struggle is between whether this young man should continue on with the relationship or try to do what's best for himself, or whether he wants to commit to this relationship, and whether those two are mutually exclusive. It's really a beautiful film. It's a small film. It's short, but it's extremely powerful. It was one of my favorite movies they got to screen this year from filmmakers. A filmmaker that I've been associated with for several years. In the time that I've gotten screeners, John Paul Rice, he's the producer of it. He sent it to me, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's really well done. It's really terrific, emotional, personal story. So that is Edgar Michael Bravo's A Young Man's Future, which is number 8 on my favorite list. Number 7 is the Russo brothers' Captain America: Civil War, the 3rd film in the Captain America series from Marvel, and it's quite frankly, it's probably my favorite pure escapist movie of the year. I mean, there are others that are coming up on the list that are really good, but as far as films without really too much else to say as, just pure escapism, I think Captain America: Civil War just stands out above pretty much the rest. And it's a lot of fun. I love Tom Holland as the new Spider-Man. I love the way they got everybody involved in the film, and it really sets up where the Marvel Cinematic Universe goes from here. And I can't wait to see what happens as the Russo brothers take over the Avengers series with Infinity War. So number 7 is Captain America: Civil War. Number 6 is a short film, one of 2 short films that I have on here. Another movie that I had the pleasure of screening after the filmmaker sent it to me. The filmmaker, Cindy Maples, and the film she sent me was Out of My Mind, which is a very interesting horror psychological thriller about a novelist whose story seems to have some basis in reality. And it's a very short film, but one of the things that grabs you about Cindy's film, as it did in the previous film that she sent me, Random, is that she has got an incredible cinematic vision as far as the way she uses visuals, the way she uses cinematography to help tell what are fundamentally simple stories and make them immensely compelling. And so Out of My Mind by Cindy Maples was by far one of the best films I saw this year. It's also going to be on my best list, spoiler alert. But it's a film that really hit me with a punch when I saw it, and it was really great to see. And I know she, I follow her on social media. I know she's had a lot of success with the film. And she's definitely somebody, as a lot of these filmmakers who I've seen movies and screen movies for over the years are. I can't wait to talk to them at some point. So number 6 is Cindy Maples' Out of My Mind. Number 5, we go to another escapist film. This one Probably not surprising, given my affinity for Star Wars. It's Gareth Edwards' Rogue One, a Star Wars story about the uh, band of rebels that steal the plans for Death Star before A New Hope, and it's the first in the spinoff, not Skywalker story films, and it really sets the tone for what will hopefully be a fantastic addition to the expansion of the Star Wars universe. It's essentially a war film, and it went through a lot of reshoots, but you would never necessarily notice that watching the final film unless you were familiar with the trailers and how much was missing between the trailers and the feature. But the fact of the matter is, it's like Rogue One is a complete story. You don't really see any seams where it's like, oh, well, that looks like something is missing there. No. Gareth Edwards, who did the Godzilla remake a couple of years ago, just did a fantastic job in bringing this together. And it's a great start to what will hopefully be a rich expansion to the Star Wars universe. So number 5 is Gareth Edwards' Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Number 4 is from a filmmaker from Azerbaijan, Tofik Raziev. He was featured on my favorites list last year with one of his films, and he sent me 3 more films this past year, and I've got one already from this year. But the last film he sent me last year, Arif, is a quiet little war story. It's about a family who is cut off during a moment of civil war or a moment of war, and it's the mother is sick, the father's dying, and the mother. Okay, so the mother goes to get medicine for the father who is dying, leaving just the daughter. Their son was in the war and was killed in the war, and it's basically a short story about how the daughter's coping with this new reality. And it's really a powerful film. And one of the things that I love about his work is it ultimately comes from the heart. And it's a powerful look at it's powerful and simple at the same time. And he just does such a great job with visuals, telling a story in a short context, but also landing a hard emotional punch. And so Arif was one of the best films that I saw this past year. It was also one of my favorites. Number 3 is from Morgan Neville, who did 20 Feet from Stardom. It's the documentary The Music of Strangers. It is basically about the creation by Yo-Yo Ma of the Silk Road Ensemble, following them around, basically getting to know the people involved with the Silk Road Ensemble, which is a world music ensemble, and getting to understand these people, the countries that they came from, the cultures that they came from, and how that has infused their musical styles and the way that the Silk Road Ensemble comes together. And it's one of my favorite films about creativity and about the artistic process I think I've ever seen. And it's very timely in the way that it brings the political atmospheres that these people are coming from and shows us how important art is. And it's just a beautiful film. It's a simple film. It's a documentary. It's a compelling documentary. It's an entertaining documentary. It's a great musical documentary. So number 3 is Morgan Neville's Music of Strangers. Number 2 is Denis Villeneuve, his film Arrival. It's the third. It comes on the heels of Prisoners and Sicario with him. Both of those I didn't get a chance to see until I saw them on DVD, at which point I really love them. Arrival, I got to see in theaters, and I'm really glad I did. It came out in November. It came out at a time where the the breakdown in communication has never been more obvious in the world. And the fact that this is a science fiction film in the same way of Close Encounters, Contact, that really focuses in on the importance of communication, and especially the importance of communication when it comes to people who are not that are not from our world. That is an important message right now, and something that really hit me with like a ton of bricks. And coming off of this last election, and Amy Adams is just wonderful. It's arguably my favorite performance of hers, probably her best, which is saying something. It's a shame she didn't get nominated for an Oscar for, but we'll go through that later. So number 2 is Arrival. Number 1 is David Lowery's Pete's Dragon, his adaptation of Disney's Pete's Dragon. Ultimately, the thing that really makes this work is that it's a very personal story, and it's very much a reimagining in every sense of the word of the original Disney movie. It is not unlike the original Disney material in every possible way. There's not music. There's not fun comedic aspects of it. It's a straight up fantasy that deals with abandonment and how a young boy has to adapt from that, and the way he bonds with Elliot, the dragon, and which another critic likened to, bonding with a pet. That's a very apt. It's a very apt comparison for this movie, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful film in every way, shape, or form. And it really is my favorite movie of the year. It other than Arrival, I don't know anything else really comes close. Than to David Lowery's Pete's Dragon as being my favorite film of the year. So that's my top 10 favorite films of 2016. Now let's go to the best. This will somewhat tie into the Oscar discussion, but the fact of the matter is it's going to be somewhat different. So starting with number 10 is Martin Scorsese's Silence. Number 9 is Jackie, which has a fantastic performance by Natalie Portman as Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. At a time when it takes place a week after JFK was assassinated, and Natalie Portman's performance in this is probably the best thing she's ever done, including Black Swan, including The Professional. The accent is a bit off. The accent feels a bit awkward, but the fact of the matter is, it's a part that I don't really care because of how good the emotional material is in the film. So Jackie is number 9. Number 8 is Cindy Maples' Out of My Mind. Number 7 is Barry Jenkins' Moonlight, which basically spans 3 decades in the life of its protagonist and is one of the most beautiful coming-of-age stories ever, in my opinion. And it's really a shame, and I'll discuss this a little bit when it comes to the Oscars, that there's no way for 3 actors to be nominated for the same character. But the fact of the matter is, conjunction at the same time for the same one. But the fact of the matter is, it's all 3 actors who played the main character in Moonlight, Trevante Rhodes, who plays him at the end, Alex R. Hibbert, and Ashton Sanders, all were sensational, and the final effect of the film does not work without them. So number 7 was Moonlight. Number 6, we go back to Tofik Rezaev, but a different film than Arif. The first film I saw from him last year, Nihan, The Last Page, which looks at grief of a man who, as a way of channeling his grief over losing his wife, writes a book. And that's basically as simple as all that. And it's a very emotional story. It's a very well done story. Arif is probably my favorite film of his this past year, but Nihan is one that really resonated with me and is probably just slightly ahead of it overall. So number 6 was Nihan, The Last Page. Number 5 was John Carney's Sing Street. Number 4 was The Music of Strangers. Number 3 was Pete's Dragon. Number 2 was Arrival. Number 1 is 13th, the documentary by Ava DuVernay, who did Selma a couple of years ago. 13th is the Oscar-nominated documentary about how she looks at the wording of this 13th Amendment, which was passed, as we saw in the Spielberg film Lincoln, and how the specific wording of that has been used and manipulated over the years to continue the tradition of enslavement of African Americans and minorities in this country. And it's just a powerful indictment on what the way this country has dealt with civil rights and the oppression of African Americans and Latinos and plenty of other minorities over the years. And so 13th is just a stunning film. I do hope it wins tomorrow. We'll go over that a little bit. But that is by far the best film I saw in 2016. It's just such a striking documentary, such a powerful documentary. It's just hard to, you really need to see it in order to understand just how good it really is. So that is those are the top 10 films I saw in 2016, which leads us to the Academy Awards. This is a year that my wife and I, we don't have cable with the apartment. So unless I go somewhere, I'm probably not going to be watching the Oscars this year, which actually is kind of fine because I enjoy following it more on social media more than the actual ceremony at this point. Partially because of the fact that the ceremony is so long, but also because of the fact that it tends to be rather predictable at this point. You really don't have a whole lot of surprises going into the Oscar night. And that's certainly the case this year. Right now, it looks like La La Land is going to walk away with plenty of awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress. And it's a very good film. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun movie to watch. It was a great take on the musical genre by Damien Chazelle, who also did Whiplash. I didn't love it as much as a lot of people did, and I certainly didn't necessarily think it was anything, oh, hey, this is pure Best Picture worthy. I wouldn't necessarily say that. If it wins, the biggest disappointment for me will be the fact that it was so inevitable. It's a very good movie. It's a movie that I enjoyed. I think Emma Stone's completely worthy of being Best Actress, although she is not my personal pick, which we'll talk about here. But the fact of the matter is, it just feels very predictable right now. So that's part of the reason I'm probably not going to watch the Oscars tomorrow night. I am curious to see how Jimmy Kimmel does as host, but ultimately speaking, it's watching the actual ceremony just doesn't really do much for me right now. It's just not that interesting. Partially because it's hard to see a whole lot of rooting interest, especially when it feels like everything's already been decided by the time the nominees are actually announced. So those are my personal thoughts on why I'm not going to watch the Oscars this year. As a movie geek, as I shouldn't necessarily, I should be watching the Oscars, but I'm not going to. So that's just personally. So let's get to the categories, though. I won't really deal with the short film categories because while I do watch a lot of short films, they tend not to be ones that are nominated. So it's like I don't really see the ones that are nominated. So, which is actually a shame. I'd like to see several of the movies that I watch over the years nominated for the short film live action category. It would be great to see that. I mean, because I feel privileged to be able to watch the films that I'm watching. Best foreign language film, I haven't seen any of the nominees, so it's kind of hard for me to say, oh yeah, I think that should win. Yeah, I haven't seen any of the nominees. It's hard for me to get to the foreign language films unless they're on Netflix or something like that. Same with documentary feature, but I mean, I have seen a couple. Well, the only one I've seen right now is 13th. I am planning going to see I Am Not Your Negro after work tomorrow, so I can at least see those two films before the Oscars. But right now my personal choice is 13th. O.J. Made in America is probably going to win. And I've heard great things about I'm Not Your Negro. So we'll see how that plays out. Best animated film is kind of interesting this year. So I haven't seen My Life as a Zucchini or The Red Turtle. The two Disney films, Moana and Zootopia, are probably the favorites. My personal choice out of those two is Zootopia, but both are really good. Although my personal choice out of the ones that I've seen that are nominated is Kubo and the Two Strings. I would love to see that one win just because it breaks up the monotony of being being dominated by CG animated films. And the fact of the matter is, Laika just did a phenomenal job with that movie. It's probably my favorite film that they've done since Coraline. And so I hope Kubo and the Two Strings wins. I'm kind of thinking it's going to be Zootopia, though. Just because of how well that movie did its social message. I'm not really brokenhearted that Finding Dory didn't get nominated. And there really weren't too many other choices where it's like, oh, that should have been nominated. Best makeup and hairstyling. I have a feeling this will probably boil down to Star Trek Beyond. It would be kind of surprising if Suicide Squad won. But personally, it would have been nice to see either The Nice Guys or Silence nominated here. Just the lack of nominations for Silence, except for its fantastic cinematography, is a shame for me because, I mean, obviously it was one of my absolute favorite movies of the year. And it just, from a technical standpoint, was some of the best work Scorsese's ever had to work with. Best costume design, haven't seen Allied, haven't seen Florence Foster Jenkins. I kind of want to lead towards Jackie. I think Jackie did a phenomenal job recreating some of the more iconic looks of Jackie Kennedy. I would have liked to have seen Silence nominated, Nice Guys nominated. Um, I have a feeling it could go to La La Land, but I do think Jackie will probably win out here just because of how iconic all of the and how well done the recreations of Jackie Kennedy's wardrobe were. Best production design. This is something where I really feel like Silence probably could have cleaned up here. Same with Jackie if it had been nominated. The category is pretty impressive though. Arrival, which is kind of surprising, but I mean, I guess the interior of the spaceships kind of gets that. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Hail Caesar, which I did not see coming in this category. La La Land, which will probably win, and Passengers which was very well designed, but very basic sci-fi. La La Land will probably win, and that sort of comes back to the problem that I kind of have with the Oscars is how predictable they've gotten. Best film editing, it's probably going to be La La Land. I would kind of be. It wouldn't surprise me to see Hacksaw Ridge or Moonlight win, depending on how the voters wanted to go with that. I think my personal choice would have been Arrival, probably with La La Land next. But yeah, I mean, I think La La Land will probably win, especially for the way it edited the dance sequences and musical sequences. But Moonlight and Arrival are probably the best when it comes to storytelling. And again, it would have been fantastic to see Silence nominated. It would have been great to see Rogue One, Snowden, maybe even Deadpool. Best cinematography, I would love to see Silence win this outright because it was just probably the best shot film of the year. Next up on my list is nominated as well, Arrival, which was fantastic. Moonlight, if it wins, I will not begrudge it because it was a beautifully shot film as well. I have a feeling it will probably go La La Land, but I could definitely see Moonlight surprise and maybe even Arrival because of the fact that it's a Best Picture nominee as well. Best sound editing, best sound mixing, and best sound editing. I kind of want to go with the musical and La La Land with this one, with both of these. Hacksaw Ridge could probably split one or the other, so maybe La La Land for sound mixing, Hacksaw Ridge for sound editing. Would be nice to see Arrival in there though, because there really is some fantastic sound design in there, and the way the music and the sound effects work to tell that story is just phenomenal. Arrival was probably one of the best. Was easily probably the film that impressed me the most from a technical standpoint this year, much like Mad Max Fury Road did last year. Best visual effects, I really would have liked to have seen Pete's Dragon nominated. I really would have liked to have seen... I'm really surprised Arrival did not get nominated. Of the ones that did get nominated, I think Doctor Strange or Rogue One are probably my favorites, although Jungle Book was quite good. It wouldn't necessarily surprise me, especially if it doesn't win Best Animated Feature, to see Kubo and the Two Strings get the nod here. That was a surprising nomination, but the fact of the matter is it was really great visual effects in there. Deepwater Horizon was very good effects, but I don't know if it'll necessarily win out here. I kind of want to go with the Jungle Book or Rogue One of the ones that are nominated, though. Best Original Song, this is where the songs that are nominated for La La Land, Audition, and City of Stars are really good. They really are. However, there were two songs from Sing Street that were even better. Drive It Like You Stole It and To Find You. I would have taken either one of those over the songs from La La Land, except maybe Audition. Audition was really great. How Far I'll Go from Moana. I would love to see Lin-Manuel Miranda win for that song. It was a great song. Trolls, I'm fairly certain most people would be perfectly fine without that one winning. And The Empty Chair, I haven't seen the documentaries from. I'm sure it's a good song, but it's not La La Land. Best Original Score, this is going to be La La Land straight up. There are some great scores that are nominated. Jackie was a terrific score. Passengers, this is not going to be Thomas Newman's year. It was very derivative score for him. Moonlight, I don't really remember the score. And Lion was good, but like Jackie was without doubt the best I saw from this category. I heard from this category this year. Of the ones that are nominated, the more I've listened to Arrival, the more I've listened to Silence. Those are the two best scores I heard this year. But the problem is, both of them were disqualified. I kind of understand because Silence was very. It was hard to hear the score for Silence when the film was going, but the more I've listened to it separate from the film makes me want to go back and watch the movie to really hear it in the context of the film. But if Jackie wins, which I really hope it does, I would love to see it surprise over La La Land. I would not begrudge it because that score was some of the most compelling musical underscore I've ever heard for a film, just hands down. It was just such a bold approach to the story, and it was just really heightened the emotional impact of the story. But La La Land will probably win out. It's a fine score, but again, I don't love La La Land. It's probably going to win, which, okay, that's all well and good, but just, there were better options this year. Best Adapted Screenplay, my personal pick is Arrival. I really hope Arrival wins. All of the nominees I've seen, all of the nominees, they're all Best Picture nominees, are very good. Fences, Hidden Figures, Lion, and Moonlight. Moonlight is my second option if Arrival doesn't win. And I do think Moonlight will probably end up winning. But if either one of those two go home with it, which I think either one will, those are probably the two best options. That would be fine by me. It doesn't matter which one. Arrival was great, intelligent sci-fi, probably some of the smartest sci-fi we've seen in a long time. Moonlight is just a really beautifully written story. Best Original Screenplay. I didn't see a few of these. The only ones I saw were Hell or High Water, La La Land, and Manchester by the Sea. I haven't gotten to The Lobster, haven't gotten to 20th Century Women. I think my personal pick of these is Manchester by the Sea. And I have a feeling that or Hell or High Water will probably win out. Depending on how the awards go, I can kind of see Manchester by the Sea winning, but I can also see Hell or High Water winning because it's obvious that the Academy really loved that movie. Ones that I would have liked to have seen Sing Street nominated. That would have been a long shot, though. Jackie would have been a long shot, but I thought it was beautifully written. And Loving, I thought it was much better film than I think a lot of people give it credit for when they finally saw it. So I thought that was a terrific film, and really well written. My other one in my top 5 is A Young Man's Future by Edgar Michael Bravo, which I listed in my favorite films list. But I mean, for obvious reasons, given how small of a production that is, it's not really surprising it's in here. it's not in here, but the fact of the matter is, it was one of the best original screenplays I felt like I saw all year. But this year, this one I think will be Hell or High Water. Probably is my best guess for a win, followed by Manchester by the Sea. Best Supporting Actress. I would be stunned if anybody other than Viola Davis wins it. I've seen all 5 nominees. All 5 are really good. Naomi Harris, after I saw Moonlight, was my number one choice. Michelle Williams did a fantastic job. She's going to win an Oscar at some point. Nicole Kidman was good. Not really, I wouldn't necessarily give it to her, but she was good. And Octavia Spencer was good. Both of them have done better work. But so basically, Davis, Harris, or Michelle Williams, it's got to be Viola Davis. She was just fantastic in Fences. It was just such a such a great performance and such an emotional performance. I just absolutely loved it. Best Supporting Actor. My feelings on this category. All of the actors are very deserving. I personally felt like Jake Gyllenhaal was better in Nocturnal Animals than Michael Shannon was. All five nominees are good though. Mahershala from Ali from Moonlight is very good in a very brief role. Personally, I would have liked to have seen Trevante Rhodes, who plays the adult version of the main character in Moonlight, nominated. He was my top choice in this category, followed by Lucas Hedges from Manchester by the Sea, and Yosuke Kubozuka from Silence. Dev Patel was 4th for me for Lion, and I'm really glad he ended up getting in here. Jeff Bridges, not really surprised that he ended up getting nominated for Hell or High Water. I don't see him winning. I think Moonlight, this will be the big place for Moonlight to win. And deservingly so. I just kind of feel like it's for the wrong actor. But I'm not going to complain if and when he ends up winning. Best Actress. My biggest complaint here is no Amy Adams. I felt like she was more than deserving for especially Arrival, but also Nocturnal Animals. Ruth Negga gave a great performance in Loving. Natalie Portman is fantastic in Jackie. She is actually my top choice in this. I would love to see her win for this performance. I think, like I said, it's probably the best performance she's ever given. I didn't see Ella Isabel Huppert or Meryl Streep for Florence Foster Jenkins. Emma Stone will probably win this. And as a fan of Emma Stone, I can't really complain. But as somebody who would like a little bit of suspense, I thought that Natalie Portman was absolutely phenomenal. And I think Emma Stone will have other better chances. Maybe not, but I felt like Emma Stone was somebody who would definitely be back as well. But she's probably going to win, and I have no problem with that. As I said, I'm a fan of hers. But I just, it's the inevitability of La La Land that really kind of brings me down about that film overall, more than anything else. Best Actor. I feel like this is probably Casey Affleck's category to lose. I don't think Ryan Gosling will win. Viggo Mortensen would be certainly a surprise if he won, because I don't think anybody would see that coming. It would be like Roberto Benigni winning for Life is Beautiful about 20 years ago. Andrew Garfield was really good in Hacksaw Ridge. I would have liked to have seen him nominated a little bit more for Silence, personally. But, I mean, both performances were very good. Denzel Washington is terrific in Fences. I don't necessarily feel like this is something he should win an Oscar for, but it's a very good performance. Which brings us to Casey Affleck, who was absolutely terrific in Manchester by the Sea, in my opinion. Did a really great job in the movie. It's very implosive, very internal performance, and it really captures the feeling of somebody who is lost in his life and somebody who had never really recovered from the one great tragedy in his life. The next person I would put in my personal list for this category would be Joel Edgerton for Loving. I felt like he was probably, even though a lot of people were high on the movie going into its release and stuff like that, he sort of lost steam, which is disappointing because I thought he was easily as good as Ruth Negga was in the film. And I kind of felt like he carried, in his own way, he really did carry the emotional arc of the film because of the way that the film portrayed his dilemma as being able to wanting to be able to provide for his wife, but not necessarily feeling like he's able to. And that's one of the things I really loved about his performance, is I felt like he nailed it, and it's a shame that he didn't get love for it. Best Director, Martin Scorsese, I would have liked to have seen nominated for Kundun. Pablo Larraín for Jackie, I would have loved to have seen nominated. David Lowery for Pete's Dragon. Pete's Dragon got shut out, not really a surprise. Disappointing, but not a surprise. Barry Jenkins and Villeneuve for Arrival are my two personal picks that got nominated, along with Damien Chazelle, Mel Gibson for Hacksaw Ridge, and Kenneth Lonergan for Manchester by the Sea. It's a very good list this year. As I said, Damien Chazelle will probably win for La La Land. I feel like Barry Jenkins or Villeneuve would be better choices. But that's mainly because of the fact that I feel like overall those films are better. But Damien Chazelle was going to win, and probably going to win, and it's good. He did a good job with it. He did a very good job. It's a really good film. I hate to be underselling La La Land, but the fact of the matter is, I can't say I loved it or thought it was just anything particularly special the way other people did. It's a very good movie. It's an entertaining movie, but the fact of the matter is, it's like I just didn't think it was like, oh, we have to anoint this one Best Picture. I feel like Moonlight's a better film for that. I feel like Arrival's a better film than that. Which brings us to Best Picture. I just saw Hidden Figures this evening, so I have now seen all 9 of the Best Picture nominees, and all 9 were very good. I think the one that I was most on the fence about, ironically speaking, was Fences, Denzel Washington's film. It was a very good film. Pretty stagey, though, which I kind of knew going in. None of the films in this category are bad. None of them are ones that I want to go, yeah, that really didn't deserve to be in here. All of them are quality films. All of them are Oscar quality films in one way or the other. Will I necessarily nominate them? No. But the fact of the matter is that I felt like all of them more or less deserve to be there. There were a few, Fences, Line, and Manchester by the Sea in particular, where as I was watching them, especially in their first hour, it's like, wow, this is really kind of Oscar baity. But by the end of the movies, by the end of those respective movies, they'd really sucked me in and really and it really won me over. And it was kind of amazing that multiple movies in this year's Oscars sort of had that same effect, where it's like they're kind of Oscar baitities. So they didn't really start off that great, but in the end, they ended up winning me over. But I would be if Arrival or Moonlight were to surprise and win this category, I would be very pleasantly surprised. Especially Moonlight, and I would be grateful. I felt like that was a terrific film just in general. It was really memorable. It was really something that resonated with me when I was watching it. But La La Land will probably win. And I I hate to feel again, I hate feeling like I'm crapping on this movie that is actually really good, but I the inevitability it seems with the win is what's really doesn't really sit well with me. And so that's kind of just where I am with it. So La La Land will probably win. I'd kind of be surprised if anything other than maybe Moonlight won. Personally, it would be great to see Arrival win. That was my best of the Best Picture nominees. But La La Land will probably win, and it's a good movie. It's a very entertaining movie. It's a very fun movie. So I think that it's definitely a movie that deserves to be in the race, and yeah, it does. In other years, I probably would have said, yeah, I definitely would give it to that. But this year, I have a hard time feeling it. There were other movies in the category, especially that I felt like are more deserving. So that's my take on the Oscars this year, as well as my 10 best and favorites list. I hope you enjoyed listening. Like I said, I've got some more stuff in the works. I hope to have more podcasts up in the near future with a variety of subjects. Some more interviews with filmmakers, and hopefully keeping up with the reviews because that's important for me. So for now, I think that'll wrap. And thank you very much for listening over the past year, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed doing this, and I definitely want to continue doing this. So for now, this is Brian Scuttle from the Sonic Cinema Podcast saying thank you very much. I hope you have a good time listening to this.